I'm going to try to make the best of this presentation because it is a little dry. And I will answer some questions at the end. I spoke to the Realtors Association last week on this same topic, and there were some very interesting questions. So I'm sure that you will have some. In 2013, there were almost 51,000 convictions for serious crimes. Of those, 0.3% were concealed handgun license holders. Out of 364 homicides, 3 were committed by CHL holders. And there's an estimated 850,000 concealed handgun holders. Another interesting fact is the first gun restriction in the state of Texas was 1871. Now, I can't tell you what it was because I wasn't around then, but that was the first gun restriction way back when. And DPS estimates that roughly about 3.4% of all of our population in the state of Texas are gun holders. Now, as we go through this, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the law itself, how it affects you as businesses, some of the options that you have. And I'll be very upfront. Being the president of the Texas Police Chiefs Association, we opposed this legislation, as well as 75% of the chiefs that are members of our association. Now, here we go. This is House Bill 910, was commonly referred to as the open carry bill, and it modified 49 parts of the Texas statute. It basically eliminated the word concealed throughout the law. So basically the legislature said, we're going to keep the same law, we're just going to eliminate the word concealed to make it easy. Now, obviously it says that you do have to have a license in order to open carry. And it does have 2 penal code provisions. That would be 30.06 for the concealed carry, because we still have to identify that there's concealed carry, as well as 30.07, which is open carry. Now, punishment. In the old law, it was a Class A misdemeanor to violate the concealed handgun license law. So if you were carrying in a place that you were prohibited, it was Class A misdemeanor. Now, it is a Class C misdemeanor, which is about a $200 fine. So they lowered that punishment as well. Now, it is a Class A misdemeanor if you're told to leave by the business owner but refuse to leave. So it's the same punishment for both. Can y'all see that in the back? No? Okay. I will try. I didn't want to read all this, but I will read some of it since those in the back. I can see y'all now because I've got my glasses on. Notice requirements. This is something that's very significant to you as business owners. It's very, very specific, and this is very important. You have to have a separate notice for concealed and open carry. And it's very descriptive on what has to be written. Now, I'll get into that too. You can be oral or written. So if you have someone come into your business and you see that they have a gun and they're tucked in the back of their pants, you can ask them to leave. Again, it's a Class A misdemeanor if they refuse to leave. Or you can have signage at the front of your building. And I'm going to get into the signage here in just a moment. If it's written notice, if it's the sign, it has to comply specifically with the law. Now, there are places here in town that have already prepared the signs, sign companies that have these ready for you to get. And as far as I know, they do meet the requirements of the law. So it has to include the statutory language as written, and I'll get to that, in both English and Spanish. Now, one of the interesting things, as this legislation was pushed through, we believe that it was rushed through because there's a lot of things that are not addressed. We're going to see some case law that's going to come along over the next couple of years, and in the next session, we will see some amendments and some adjustments to the law as we see it today. Okay, so it says you have to have it in English and Spanish. It gives you the exact wording for English, but it does not give you the exact wording for Spanish. So you're on your own. You can use Tex-Mex, you can use Castilian Spanish, whatever you want to do, but you're on your own, okay? And don't ask me to do that for you because I'm not very good at that. Okay, they have to be contrasting colors. As most of you that have had the concealed signs, you have the black lettering on the white. Now, one of the things that we've seen around is we see businesses that will take the window in front, excuse me, the window in front, and will put the just white lettering on the window, which could be contrasting depending on the background behind the window. So I think I would use the signs instead of doing something like that. And it has to be 1 inch in height. It's very specific. Again, our sign companies are prepared to sell those signs to you at a very high dollar. And they have to be displayed in a conspicuous manner, clearly visible to the public. Now again, this is the concealed part, very specific. Remember, 30.06 deals with concealed, 30.07 deals with open, and their languages are pretty much similar. There's a few changes in there, not much difference. The additional requirement is they must be displayed at every entrance. Okay? It says every entrance to the property. Does that mean your back door where only your employees come in? Are you sure? I can't tell you. It's not clarified. So, in order to meet the requirement, this is one of those things that hopefully legislation will clear up in 2017. It's not specific. Now, if you only have a sign at the entrance where the public is allowed to come in and you don't want to have one at the back door, I'm not going to come write you a ticket or take you to jail. So you're good to go with just leaving them at the front as far as the SAPD cares. Okay? If I can get this, open carry. Now, here's another thing. It's very specific in the law. You must carry in a holster on your hip holster or shoulder holster. That is very specific when you open carry. However, it does say what kind of holster you're supposed to carry it in. It doesn't tell you how to wear the holster. So is it unlawful for someone to have the gun in a shoulder holster strapped around their leg? It's not clear. So again, hopefully in 2017, we will clear this up as well. Okay, and then if you go to the concealed handgun license school, these are some of the things that have to be done. Restraint holdings and the different types of holsters. Now I'll tell you, one of the things that I'd like to implement if and when I'm reelected, and this is something I want to do next summer, is I would like to start doing a tactical class for citizens. So for those people that have concealed handgun license, I'd like to offer 8-hour classes for our citizens to go through. Because I think it's important that everyone use their right and get a concealed handgun license. Get a handgun license. But I also think it's important that you're tactical with that weapon and not just carrying in your purse or in your back pocket. Too many bad things happen. Okay, personal protection for officers. That's not really something that you need. Okay, this is where you can carry concealed in public areas, personal vehicle or watercraft, or your own premise. And employment unless otherwise restricted. Now this is something that I think that you may want to know about. Is if you have a business, you have the right to allow your employees to carry open or concealed. That's up to you as a business owner. You also can allow your customers to come in open or concealed. Or you can deny both, or either one. So you can deny the public the ability to carry concealed or open into your business and allow your employees to do that. This is basically the same thing here, unless otherwise restricted. Now, in the bottom you can see it says in cars is allowed. There is case law that says you can restrict an employee from bringing a gun into the place of business. You cannot restrict an employee from bringing a gun to work and leaving it in their car. Everybody understand that? Okay. The only exception is if it's a business vehicle. Okay, so if it's a business vehicle, you own the vehicle, it's got your logo on it, and you allow an employee to drive it, you can restrict a gun from being inside that vehicle. This is where signs are not required. Educational institutions. Trying to read this. Polling places. So come March 2nd and May 7th, don't be carrying the gun to the polling places. Court or court offices, racetrack, security areas of the airport, which we're going to talk a little bit about that. And is Drew Darby here? I picked on him the other day, by the way. I saw him and I said, hey, I saw that. This is at the prayer breakfast. I said, I saw this law that you got passed. He said, well, actually, the guy that passed it that pushed the bill was Drew, but it wasn't this Drew. Basically, it says if you have a concealed handgun license and you walk into the airport and you have a big oops, as long as you go back to the car and put it away, you're not going to be arrested. So y'all can tell Drew Darby that I picked on him just a little bit. Some of the other things that are going on with the laws as far as the gun laws is campus carry. Now, campus carry goes into effect August 1st of this year. That is going to be huge for our state, a lot more than what we had here. I can tell you that we anticipated a huge amount of calls coming in regards to open carry. We went as far as creating specific wording and questions for our dispatchers, so if someone called in, they would know what questions to ask to determine whether or not it's a man with a gun or it's somebody open carry. And we have received very few calls on that. I'm thinking campus carry will be a little bit different. However, the deal with campus carry is not open carry. It must be concealed. And that was Senate Bill 11. House Bill 554 was the one that was the airport one. I call that the Drew Darby one. Now, also within 1,000 feet of an execution. So we have about, 8 of those a year, something like that? So you cannot have a weapon on your person within 1,000 feet of an execution. The defense prosecution is you can have it in your car if you drive by to wave at everybody standing out there. You can have it in your car. Or if you live within 1,000 feet of where the execution is going. But if you live pretty close, you're probably behind bars and you probably don't have a gun. So, okay, prohibition on concealed and open carry. It's not required to have a sign, okay? You're not required to have a sign, but you are required, if you do have a sign, to have it worded properly. Obviously, the businesses that have 51% or more, and everybody know what that means, right? If their revenue is 51% or more coming from alcohol, you don't have to have that sign. And it's against the law for anyone that has a handgun license to be intoxicated and carrying at the same time. Or correctional facility, duh. Okay, courts. Now this is a sticky situation. This one will have some case law. This one will make it to the Texas Supreme Court. What we have here is basically the law says that you cannot have it in courts. Now the Attorney General has come out and said, okay, that's only a courtroom. So if you look at the Tom Green County Courthouse, basically what the Attorney General is saying is that anyone can walk in that has a license with open carry throughout the courthouse except in a courtroom. That was their ruling. There's cities throughout the state of Texas that are ignoring that ruling and prohibiting weapons anywhere in that building. So those are some of the things that I would imagine will come forward later on. There's the interpretation. Oh, I went back. Oh, my bad. As I said earlier, employees can prohibit, and this is both public and private. I will tell you the city of San Angelo allows employees that have concealed handgun license or a handgun license to carry concealed as long as they notify their supervisor and HR. So we do have a few of those. Lots of questions, but there's not a lot of answers. We still have quite a bit to go in this. Again, there will be some arrests made in the near future, I'm sure, that will change some of the way the law is written. I will tell you, when the law came out, we really opposed it because we didn't, I think anyways, tactically it's better to be concealed than open for you as a citizen. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But there were some other things that are coming along that I think we're going to see. I called it constitutional carry, but probably the better verbiage for it would be unlicensed carry. There will be a push in the next session from some legislatures to have unlicensed carry. As long as you can meet the requirements by the law, anyone can carry a gun. And so we're going to be opposing that one, I'm pretty sure. Okay. It does say that if you have a handgun license, if a police officer or a judge says, give me your license, you have to present it. But there's no violation. So hopefully we get that cleared up. Open carry. To detain or not to detain? That is the question. And it's a big question. This right here will probably make it to the United States Supreme Court. And I'll tell you why. Here's the issue. Fourth Amendment. You're right from illegal search and seizure. Everybody know what's the Second Amendment? Come on, people. Right to bear. That's what we're talking about today. Is that we're talking about the Second Amendment. What's the First Amendment? You got to know your amendments, folks. You got to know them. Okay. All right. There's three types of encounters that we have with citizens. One is consensual. That means I can walk up to anybody at any time and ask to talk to you. Consent. You have the ability to say no and walk away. So if I come up to you and say, hey, do you mind if I talk to you a little bit? You have the right to say, yes, I don't want to talk to you, and walk away. If it's consensual. Now, if I have detentions, if I detain you, if I have reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred or is occurring, then I have the right to detain you and talk to you. But I have to prove reasonable suspicion. And then the other would be arrest, where we have probable cause to make an arrest and you're not free to go. Now, does openly carrying a handgun create reasonable suspicion? Show of hands, how many say yes? Really? Okay. No. It says you must have more than just open carrying a weapon to detain and ask for license under 4105. I'm sorry, 411.025. And this was in the U.S. versus Black case. Officers can never have reasonable suspicion when a person is openly carrying a handgun if the detention is based solely upon the fact that the person is carrying a pistol. Now my guys back there are going, wait, that's not what you said. Okay, one more time I'm going to ask, does openly carrying a handgun create reasonable suspicion? Say no or yes. Raise your hand if it's no. Y'all are all wrong. Yes, the correct answer is yes. Are you confused now? Yes. So are we. Okay. So, Texas Penal Code. I'd like to think that the legislatures were smart enough to know that they left this law in place. This law is unlawfully carrying a weapon. A pistol is considered a weapon by definition. So it's unlawful to carry a weapon unless you have a license. Okay? So if a police officer sees someone walking into, say, academy with a handgun, my policy says they have the authority to stop you and ask you for identification and a license based off of 46.02. Okay? Because you are committing a crime in the presence of everyone in public view unless you have a license. Now, we had a meeting in Region 6. This was a very contentious issue. Abilene and San Angelo are similar in so many ways, but we differed significantly on this. So they do not allow their officers to stop anyone for a handgun alone. They have to have reasonable suspicion that another crime is occurring. I'm totally opposed to that. I feel that you as citizens should want me to find out and make sure that person is lawfully carrying that weapon. Now, if you're lawfully carrying that weapon, you're free to go. We're going to check you for ID and you're free to go. Now, you know, like I said, we've had a couple of calls, not many. I received a very interesting message or phone call this week from a person that was at Academy. And they were at Academy, and the driver of this vehicle was very, very aggressive. And so they took a picture of the license plate and sent me the picture of the license plate and said that the person was a total jerk. And the guy got out, and he had open carry. And so that was what I was afraid we were going to see, but we haven't seen a lot of those cases. So going back to this, I'm going to go through that fairly quickly because I just went through that. Okay. So Texas, what statute are we enforcing? Texas Government Code 411.205 requires a person to produce a license if demanded by a police officer. Again, however, there's no penalty involved. And 4602 says the Class A misdemeanor, to have a possession of a firearm, it's a Class A misdemeanor unless you're a convicted felon, or a third-degree felony if it's on a premise with a 51% permit. And so, I saw this morning. I had to add it to the presentation. For those of you that can't see it in the back, it says, "Warning, I carry a gun because a cop is too heavy." Like that, yeah. And I'm going to I'll touch a little bit on that. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our city attorney, Teresa James, who we're very, very fortunate to have in our community, and probably the best city attorney I've ever worked with. And she helped me with this presentation. And so thank you, Teresa. I don't know if you're here or not. Is she here? She's not here. She's not here? You didn't let her come? Lee. Come on, Daniel. Okay, questions. Any questions that you might have? Don't be afraid to ask a question. Like I said, at the Realtors Association, they ask some very good questions. Right. The law is still very clear as to when to use the weapon and when not to use the weapon. Now, I would tell you that if you use the weapon, you better be ready to go in front of the grand jury because you're going to have to answer to using that weapon. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I personally, the only time that I open carry is when I'm in uniform. Other than that, I will always have concealed. I think when you have open carry, you make yourself a target. If you're in a place that's about to be robbed and I'm a bad guy and I've got a gun, I'm going to take out the person that's going to take me out. I'm going to take them out first. I think it's a tactical disadvantage to open carry. So that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Now, one of the other topics that we have all the time is it unlawful to have a gun in your vehicle? By show of hands, say yes. Raise your hands if you believe it's unlawful to have a gun in your vehicle. Are you from Texas? No, he's not. Okay. We all got guns in our cars. I got like 4 or 5 right now, so if you need one, I'll let you borrow one. It is not, now remember, some of y'all will remember, some of you may be too young, but remember the 3-county line rule? It's okay to have a gun in the car as long as you cross 3 county lines. That was traveling. You had to be defined as traveling. That's no longer, that's been gone, that's been cleared. You can have a gun in your vehicle. If you do not have a license, the gun has to be concealed. Okay? So you can get up here right now and say you want to leave the house and you want to go to Albertsons. You have the right to carry a gun with you as long as it stays concealed and not seen. Good question. What is the appropriate way to secure a handgun in a vehicle when you're not sitting in the vehicle? I hate to have handguns by themselves in vehicles unattended. Standard Times ran a story not too long ago about the amount of weapons that we seize here in our community and how many are stolen. And most of the ones that are stolen are left in a vehicle unattended. I will say there's a little asterisk with that. 90-something% of those vehicles are left unlocked. Okay? So be a good citizen and lock your door and take your gun out. But to answer your question, I mean, obviously, if you have some people they do sell safes, gun safes, that you can carry under your seat. They require fingerprints to open, or they have locks on them, the combination locks. So you could use those, maybe in your glove box if you wanted to lock it, or carry it with you and take it in. Long guns are totally different. Yeah. Now you can, as a business owner, ask someone with the long gun to leave, and they have to comply, or we arrest them for criminal trespass. And because everybody, a long gun, he asked us, what if somebody walks into your business with a long gun? The state of Texas does not recognize that as something that you have to have a license for. You only have to be old enough to carry the weapon, and you cannot be a felon in possession of a firearm. But other than that, so that's why when we started seeing some of the activities around town prior to this legislation, we had people that were walking and displaying the weapons. We made a few calls on that, but we have a very good relationship with those people. We didn't have any trouble. It's still unlawful to present a weapon in a threatening manner. So if I'm walking with and most of the time they had their rifles down in the lower position. It was not, for some of you would be threatening, and for some others it's not. Now if they had it up like this and they're doing this kind of thing, that would probably be a violation of the law, and then we could respond to that. But you do have a right as a private business owner to not allow anyone to carry any kind of weapon in there. But you're going to have some of those people that you offend that don't want to shop at your place. Yeah. Basically, he said he doesn't understand how it passed. That this is something that should have been taken to the voters. I believe that if it had been taken to the voters, it probably wouldn't have passed. When you look at the amount of people, I think I saw that there was one of the polls before the legislation was almost 70% of the citizens in the state of Texas opposed open carry, for obvious reasons. I got to put my glasses back on. I can't see past the second row. I don't know why it went through so quickly. I think a lot of it has to do with just the political environment that's going on throughout our country. I think it was our conservative state taking a good stance in support of the Second Amendment. I think that's kind of what it was. Good question. If things change on a federal level, what takes right, federal law or state law? That would be the city attorney question. I think that would be depending on what I think I'd have to have a little more information to tell you, hey, this is what the federal law says. I can tell you in the state of Texas, if the feds came in, obviously they didn't have any control over the state of Texas saying we're going to have open carry. I don't think the federal government will allow open carry just carte blanche. I think that that's going to be a state issue. He said at a church where there are not clear owners, who has the authority to determine whether or not weapons are allowed in there? I think it would be your board, and you specifically. I think you could do that as the minister of the church. That being said, I will tell you that we all need to understand that today world is different. We need to have the ability to protect ourselves, and even in church. And so if I was a church leader, hint, hint, I would find one of my members who would be willing to carry a concealed gun to church, or 2, or 3, or 4. But I think for the protection of the people that are at the church and the church itself, I think that's not a bad thing. I know there's several churches in town that do have deacons or something like that do have a concealed handgun license or a handgun license, and that's what they do. So I mean, I think at the protection, I think you're going to have a hard time losing that in front of a grand jury if you're protecting the people at the church. That being said, there's going to take me to one last thing that I want to, and I'll answer another question, but we recently attended a program called CRAZE, and myself and Assistant Chief Fant have been certified to teach this program. We will teach any business or organization. Basically, it's a citizen's response to active shooters. So you need to be prepared as a business owner what to do if you have an active shooter in your place of business. I know it sounds scary. It's not a very intimidating program, but it is something that I think all people should be educated on. We will provide you that training free of service. It's a 1-hour class. We're going to limit it to 1 hour. So if you want us to come teach that program to your employees, to you and your employees, on how to respond to active shooter, contact myself or Assistant Chief Fant, and we'll set you up on a calendar and we'll come do the presentation for you. Absolutely. It does. I don't care if you have any guns or not. This is not going to be a tactical shooting class. This is going to be let's just assume that nobody in your business has weapons. This is going to be what to do if you have an active shooter on your location. Somebody's hand. Yes, sir. Can a college say no against no carry? The college is allowed to have certain restrictions. They can do restrictions in dormitories or where there's residences. And that's pretty much the limitation of the universities in regards to handguns. But they do have to be concealed. That's a good question. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and be safe.